So there's normally these different elements of the cycle. So first thing to say is that feeling socially anxious is very normal and common, but how we respond to it can essentially keep it going and make it last for a longer amount of time or vary in severity. So for example, if I was using this example now, so the trigger being, developing this, the situation being delivering this workshop to you guys, if we come to this bottom right box here, I might have unhelpful thoughts and images like everyone's, looking at me, they can see how anxious I am, maybe like they can notice my shaking hands, these kind of thoughts. People don't like listening to me, like maybe you all think I'm boring. I'm seeing all of these things, which then makes me feel really panicked, anxious, rushed, maybe even ashamed or embarrassed, which can then turn my focus inward. So what I mean by that is I become really internally focused. So instead of focusing on the slide, I'm focusing on my own thoughts, my own sensations, everything that's going on internally, which really amplifies how strong they feel and also how true they feel. And then we change our behaviors. So it might mean that, for example, in this situation, I avoid speaking, like I keep passing it back to Neil or something. I keep quiet. Maybe I play with my phone. I say minimal. We adapt our behavior based on how anxiety is making us feel, which then enhances the unhelpful thoughts and images, which then creates more feelings, which turns us inwards more. And it's a really vicious cycle that loops upon itself. So if you see yourself in this, know it's really hard to break out of it because it keeps itself going. So today we're looking at challenging negative thinking, because the way out of this cycle is to begin to learn different skills and ways of reacting to different elements of this cycle. So there's many, many things we can do, but today we're looking at this element, unhelpful thoughts and images. How do we deal with these kind of negative thoughts about ourselves in the context of social situations? So that's what we're going to go through. Thanks, Neil. So often there are different types of negative thinking. The first one, often referred to in CBT, are automatic negative thoughts, or sometimes called ANTs or NATs, so negative automatic thoughts. And what that means is they're so fast and quick. They come into your mind very quickly, and they're about yourself, your performance, or how you appear to others. Like, okay, I'm coming across stupid, or I'm boring, or they think I'm weird. It's just very quick, very relentless. And often we don't even realize they're negative sometimes because we're so used to thinking this way. Negative bias is more of a mindset or bias where we're sort of dwelling on past perceived failings. So really going over and over, like if I logged off this presentation, really going over and over, oh, I didn't say that right, and I'm dwelling on it. And it's also discounting all the positives. And in particular, having a negative bias of yourself, so only seeing yourself as almost if you were wearing glasses that are only allowed to see yourself negatively, while seeing other people as having great social abilities, even when they might be the same as you. And then finally, core beliefs. So these are deeper beliefs we hold about ourselves, deeper assumptions about the world, ourselves, people around us, and they tend to be quite blanket rules. For example, I'm not good enough. I'm stupid, or people are unsafe. They're quite fixed statements that maybe when we think about them, we're like, okay, I know it might not always be true, but deep down somewhere they're held as a belief, and they produce a lot of automatic negative thoughts in the present. Thanks, Neil. So today we're going to be looking a little bit at how do we deal with negative automatic thoughts, and particularly negative bias. So some common thinking traps that you might experience. So mind reading is really, really crucial in social anxiety. It's assuming you know what others are thinking about you. So it's like I assumed right now, everyone on the call must think I'm so anxious right now, or quiet, or foolish, or boring. And it feels real to me. I'm perceiving myself through other people's eyes and reading. It's like reading their mind and feeling that it's true in that moment. Fortune telling is predicting the future. So this is definitely not going to go well. I'm definitely going to come across this way. I won't be able to cope with that. We're predicting what will happen before it's even happened. Discounting the positive. So yes, this is like wearing sort of filtered glasses where you can only see the problems or negative things and not seeing any positive feedback about yourself, or you hear it, but it doesn't really land. You don't feel it. and dwelling on the negative. So for example, one person yawns and we're really focusing on that, and then we decide, okay, no one thinks I'm interesting, instead of seeing the other people who are just normal in expression. Projecting is essentially what we feel we project outwards. So if I think that I don't come across well, then I project that onto other people. They must think that too. It's a very fast external expression of our internal environment. Overgeneralization. So this is sort of, you know, I let's say I had a panic attack in that one social situation. So all other social situations could now be the same. We're really generalizing across the board. Catastrophizing, which I'm really likely to do, is to believe things that are worse than they are, or catastrophize the worst case example, right? So for me here, it would be, you know, if this presentation goes wrong and people think I'm stupid, then what if they make a complaint to my body? And then what if I get fired? And I'm going off into like all the worst case scenarios. And emotional reasoning. So this is mistaking feeling for fact. So just because I feel like I did something wrong doesn't mean that I did, or just because I feel inadequate doesn't mean that I am. But sometimes our feelings can be so strong and so frequent that it's hard to distinguish them from fact or truth in the moment. And just to say, all of these thinking traps are not something many people are choosing to do. They've just become a habit, a way of thinking, and how we understand the world. Thanks. So some examples of what they might sound like is, yeah, I'm useless at social things, or mind reading. Everyone can see how anxious I look. You might come into yourself like nobody really likes me, all of these things. And as you can see, different thoughts have different categories, but they can overlap. So for example, I'm useless at social things is discounting the positive, but it's also overgeneralization. Everyone can see how anxious I look is mind reading, but it can also be predicting the future. So it doesn't have to be a firm category, but these thoughts are really powerful because they influence how we feel and then behave. So just some examples here of ones that are really, really common in social anxiety. So another important element, particularly in social anxiety, is something we might call the inner critic. So the inner critic is sort of a harsh, judgmental internal voice. It's a little bit like an internal bully, but sometimes we become so used to it, we don't even see it that way. That creates fear of rejection by continuously highlighting your perceived flaws, mistakes, what you could have done better socially, essentially. And when we say here it acts as an overactive protective mechanism, what we mean by that is that its intention is often protective. It's trying to protect you from being rejected or being embarrassed. But the way it does that is by manifesting through sort of a social perfectionism. You must do this, you should do this, you didn't do that well. And it's constantly sort of there in the background and can really eat away at your self-esteem, but also self-confidence. So it's a little bit of a mix of all the thinking styles we looked at, and can almost be seen as a part of you in that way, and really common in social anxiety. Really important is also self-image. So as opposed to thoughts, many people actually have a negative self-image of themselves. So it's almost like you are viewing yourself as if you're like directing a film that you are in and you're seeing yourself. So for example, if I was having a negative self-image now, I was perceiving myself as how you were seeing me, but social anxiety is kind of clouding the picture a little bit. I might see myself as like looking really flustered, really sweaty, my hands shaking visibly, I'm hot, I'm uncomfortable. That is how I'm seeing myself. It's a negative self-image. Or we might have self-image of people looking bored. It's essentially an exaggerated image of what our worst fear is or what anxiety is telling us. And it can make us really scared because that's normal to not want to come across that way. So these also play quite a central role in how we're thinking as well. So how do we deal with these thoughts then? So the first thing is awareness. Often we're so used to having these thoughts, it kind of has become second nature, and we're not actually aware that we might be engaging in really unhelpful thinking styles. Second is challenging them. And thirdly is repeating the way we might deal with them until it becomes a habit. So we're going to have an example on the next slide, but don't worry if it's too small. It's on the website and I'm going to read it anyway. So one skill in sort of self-help CBT is a thought record. And this is a way of really bringing into awareness the thoughts you are having, but also responding to them differently. So I'm going to go with example 3 here, the third row down. So having coffee with a friend. So my anxiety-provoking thoughts is, I may blush or my hands may shake. My friend will think that I'm nervous or weak. Anxiety before, so on a scale of 0 to 10, 0, I'm not anxious at all, 10, extremely anxious, those thoughts make me feel a 7 out of 10. So really understandable, because in that level of anxiety, these thoughts feel real. And it's very normal out of the moment that we can see that they might not have truth in them, but in the moment, they feel true. So responding to that with a more balanced thought might be, well, my friend might not notice my hand shaking, and even if they do notice, they might not judge me. Everyone gets nervous sometimes. Also, many people's hands shake for nothing to do with anxiety, right? Low blood sugar, tremors, all sorts of things. But really important in the next column, we want to also bring evidence to this. So I've known my friend for years. They know I get nervous sometimes and they still want to spend time with me. Having some nerves is a common thing. They're afraid of flying. I have a right to feel okay about who I am, even if I am nervous sometimes. So we're really bringing explicit evidence to a more balanced thought, as opposed to just feelings and opinions, and then re-rating our anxiety 0 to 10. And for this person, it went down to a 3. So it's a way to begin to challenge these thoughts ahead of social situations. Sometimes the anxiety number might not change that much, and that's okay. It takes a practice to begin to believe the new thoughts you're kind of developing. So everyone's social anxiety and the associated negative thoughts and behaviors are unique to them. So here are some common examples and perspectives you might take. So if we're thinking, for example, it's my fault the conversation's dried up, holding in mind conversations hold 2 people, both are equally responsible for co-creating a conversation. Natural silences are normal. Other ones, for example, I look anxious or foolish or weird. Most people are more interested in how they're looking. I know I'm like a nice person and many people like me despite how I feel inside. Or no one really likes me. That's not really true, even though it feels like it sometimes. Really bringing in more balanced ways of thinking. So it does take time and persistence, and really important to be realistic so that we're not changing a negative thought into a positive thought, because really negative thoughts are not that based in truth, but neither are overly positive thoughts. So what we're really working to change is an unhelpful thought to a helpful thought. So they should be rational and realistic, right? It's really thinking about the evidence and weighing up what's actually true rather than just forcing yourself to think positively, because that can just feel not realistic and not believable either. And it can be really hard at the beginning to begin to think of other thoughts. You may not feel like you believe them yet, or they feel true, or they feel quite effortful to identify, and that's normal. It takes time. Really important that hold in mind other people are not judging us in the way that we think, and our thoughts are not always the truth. And once we can really embody that thought, then we get a bit of cognitive space to speak differently to react differently to our thought. And this comes back to what I said at the beginning, that everyone can have the thought, for example, I'm coming across stupid, but the level of belief in it or how they respond to it can be quite different. And so we're really coming to this place of thoughts are just thoughts. We can challenge them and change them over time with repetition. So yeah, to really echo this point, it does take time. We're really reflecting on evidence and developing the habit, and it's really like any other skill. So for example, if you've ever learned a language before, a task at work you used to find really tricky and now you can do with your eyes closed, a sport that you didn't really know how to do but now you have the movement ability. All of those things happened because you probably repeated something and your brain changed as a result, which allowed you to do it quicker and easier. You can't go back to the skill level you essentially had before you learned it. changing thinking patterns works very, very similarly, but it's so hard because at the beginning it can feel like a bit of an arduous task or a hard task, or it doesn't feel like it would help. And that's why we have to remind ourselves it's about repetition. But really holding in mind, yeah, a difficult interaction was because other person might have had a bad day or other things on their mind. It's often not about you, or it isn't about you to the degree it feels like it is. Okay, some people also find helpful affirmations. So this can help by replacing negative thoughts with more self-compassionate ones. And this is a little bit different to what we've discussed, because self-compassion is more about allowing yourself to struggle, to feel difficult emotions, and affirm yourself anyway, support yourself anyway. And there's a lot of evidence that self-compassion helps down-regulate anxiety. So, if I'm thinking here, oh God, this is going so badly, I might be affirming myself, I'm a good person and I'm trying to do my best. I'm giving myself that space rather than putting pressure on myself. Or these thoughts and feelings are just part of social anxiety. I'll accept them and focus on the people and task at hand. The more I practice my more rational thinking, the better I get. It's not forcing yourself to get better today or tomorrow, but just to take it one step at a time and allow yourself to be a beginner at changing this, essentially, and compassion for yourself. Exactly this. So the more you get used to challenging thoughts, the more you can break their hold. It really is repetition. And you find after a certain point, if you really practice this, that you won't always have to formally challenge thoughts in like the example we gave. It becomes sort of a very quick natural skill because you're so used to questioning your own thoughts and then maybe thinking something differently, and you can break their hold.
Okay, Sophia, I mean, thank you so much. Excellent. So I'm just going to do this little last bit and then I'll end the recording and we can have some questions, or you can put questions in the chat. But just wanted to let you know there is help out there. Is getting better is entirely possible. It can take time, but there's so much help now. Talking therapies, this is CBT. It's not for everyone. Some people don't get on with it, but you can go to your GP or self-refer, and you can have 10 or 12 sessions with a therapist, and they'll listen to your stuff and try and work through your problems with you. It is a collaborative event, even though they will be doing their job simultaneously. So there is that help. There's a big campaign at the moment. So from February this year to February next year, they're doing some adverts, including on the television and in newspapers, just encouraging people that NHS help is there, even though there are waiting lists. And then it's not as just simple as turning up. It does take a little bit of time, but you will eventually be seen. They're doing all these different conditions. So part of the advertising, I'm really pleased as, a member of the charity, that they're actually mentioning social anxiety disorder. So some radio and TV adverts will actually say the words social anxiety disorder, and for some people it's the first time they've heard it. They thought they were the only one. So I'm really pleased the campaign's taking off. But there is help as well. On the website, there is all sorts of self-help. Some video content people have produced on YouTube. There's many self-help books I'll come on to in a moment. And there are some groups developing. And as a charity, we want groups in every city so people can physically meet, or online, but physically meet potentially other people with social anxiety and share skills. In particular, Tom's founded something called Walk the Talk. It's an online event. I think it's every Monday. There's a bit of a waiting list, but the more of you that sign up to the waiting list will encourage Tom to find new facilitators. And those of you that could even volunteer one day to be a facilitator for these groups. We do need to roll them out across the country. He's had great ratings on the various review systems, and attendees receive support and encouragement to face their social anxiety fears in the real world. You can find that under the Get Involved on the website, or just type in Walk the Talk Social Anxiety into Google. We're nearly there now, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us. So want to mention this particular book. It's by the team in Oxcadat that study social anxiety and some other people. It's a really recent book. I think it's good. Yes, the title says it's for teenagers, but it has great information for adults too. All the key skills to understand your own social anxiety and what might work for you in terms of getting better is within this book. So that book exists. We have a Get Involved page on the website. And I would encourage you, for those of you that have found this at all useful, or even if you didn't, just to click onto our website. You could look under the A to Z under F for feedback form, or on the Get Involved page, and just click feedback, because part of the charity's remit is to engage with our community of all the people with social anxiety and get feedback. It actually helps us develop the charity and, in fact, get funding so we can actually do even more to help people. So I'm going to end the recording now, I think. Can I just pass you to Sophia briefly while I end my recording, and then we can do some questions?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I'm unmuted now. So